us where. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the regular meeting of Council to order. Our clerk today will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. In light of the agenda, I'd ask for a procedural motion to proceed in camera. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to the June 19th regular meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight is Ms. Sheila Gurry. Tonight's regular meeting of Council will be held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. The question period sign-up sheet is on the table by the double doors to my left for agenda items only. If any member of the gallery has a question respecting an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the sheet. And the first item on the agenda tonight is the introduction of late items, Ms. Gurry, and we have quite the list tonight.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. First off, agenda item 8A, Patricia Wilms, Community Development Manager for Canadian Blood Services. We're adding the presentation titled Partners for Life Membership, actually titled Canadian Blood Services. We're also adding for item 10C, Finance and Audit Committee recommendations from that meeting under consent items. Agenda item 12B, add new agenda item 12B report titled Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, and reorder subsequent agenda items. For agenda item 12I, development permit application number DP1304 for 4157 Verte Place. We're adding a delegation from Blair Dewick from Dewick General Contracting. For agenda item 13A, we are removing zoning amendment bylaw 2022 number 4500.204. We're removing land use contract discharge bylaw 2022 number 7355. And as well, and not noted here, Your Worship, for item 12C, Nanaimo Operations Borrowing Bylaw Report, on page 2 of the report under bullet number 3, there is a typo, and it's actually supposed to say 1.25 million rather than 1.5 million for the retrofit of the fire training center. The bylaw is noted with the correct price, though. Fortunately. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gurry. A motion for adoption of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Manley, seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favour? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Eastmere. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Mayor's report. I have a few items tonight. The first is a little reminder that Saturday, June the 24th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and Saturday, August the 26th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Is the annual car trunk sales. The first is held at Country Club Centre Mall parking lot on June the 24th, and the second will be held at the Van Cortlandt University in Lot A. The concept is to promote the sale and reuse of recycling of unwanted garage sale type items. No retail type booths or sale of new items will be permitted. The only new items permitted are for sale are items made from recycled materials. Registration for spaces for vendors is on a first come, first served basis. There are a total of over 150 vendor spaces available. And obviously, the good news is that this reduces substantially the amount of waste that goes into the landfill by giving used household items a new lease on life. So I encourage people to attend. More good news, concerts in the park are back this summer. 10 free concerts will feature a variety of music in local parks. And I'm just going to run through the list of all of them. Friday, June 16th, they're all concerts, by the way, are from 6 to 7 p.m. Friday, June 16th, Maffeo Sutton Park, Cosmosaurus, which is alternative rock. Monday, June 19th, Kin Park at Departure Bay, Tasha Adams, jazz. Tuesday, July 4th, Piper's Lagoon Park, Island Time Saxophone Quartet, all wind instruments. Wednesday, July 12th, Piper's Lagoon Park, From the Earth, it's a folk duo. Friday, July 14th, Kin Park at Departure Bay, Velvet Stardust, 60s and 70s covers, that's for old folks like me. Wednesday, July 19th, Bowen Amphitheatre, Colliding Canyons, which is psychedelic instrumental rock. That's Councillor Thorpe. Beneath that conservative exterior lies a child of the 60s.
I knew it.
Tuesday, July 25th, Colliery Dam Park, Gab Goslin, acoustic guitar / vocals / French repertoire. Friday, July 28th, Maffeo Sutton Park, Grinning Barretts, it's Celtic punk rock. Tuesday, August the 1st, Westwood Lake Park, McSharrett, folk. And Wednesday, August 16th, the Bowen Amphitheatre, details rap. So, there's lots of things to do in terms of culture in Nanaimo this summer, and they're free. And finally, a little reminder, it's a little wet out there on and off in the last few days, but as we know, we went through an incredibly dry and frightening period considering the risk of fire hazard. So Nanaimo Fire Rescue would like to remind residents of the increased risk of fire. Most brush fires that occur within the city are the result of human carelessness. In the summer months when the ground is dry, fire crews respond to numerous preventable fires started by the improper disposal of cigarettes and smoking materials. Tossing a cigarette butt can have devastating impacts on lives and destroy structures and property at a rapid pace. So please, they are asking you, and you are indeed required by law, always make sure you extinguish your smoking materials. Do not discard smoking materials from vehicles. Use the interior ashtrays. And never dispose of a cigarette anywhere but in an ashtray or other proper receptacle, please. The city's issued a call for a new member for the Board of Variance. Residents interested in becoming more involved with local government have the opportunity to apply to the Board of Variance. We're currently recruiting one member for a 3-year term. The board is an independent body that can grant variances to relax zoning regulations, extend non-conforming uses, and reconstruct non-conforming buildings. It's interesting work. Successful applicants for the Board of Variance will have to have a basic understanding of building and zoning regulations, such as the city's zoning bylaw and BC Building Code, as well as familiarity with interpreting architectural plans and documents. Board members cannot be elected officials, employees of the local government that appoints them, or on an advisory planning commission. If you're interested, would you please submit a completed application form to the Legislative Services Department by 3:30 p.m. on Friday, June the 30th. You can go online, www.nanaimo.ca/go-to/committees. Mail in person to Legislative Services, 455 Wallace Street, Nanaimo, V9R5J6, or you can email legislative.servicesoffice@nanaimo.ca. And finally, another year's almost passed quite remarkably. Canada Day festivities for Maffeo Sutton Park from 11 till 3:30 on Saturday, July the 1st. The event begins with the traditional celebration of flags and is followed by the opening ceremonies before entertainment kicks off at 11:40. The main stage will feature performances by Doctors of Rock and Roll, Cross Parallel, and Cameron Whitcomb of American Idol fame. So I encourage everyone to come out and enjoy the event. It'll include complimentary activities along with the live musical entertainment, a photo booth, cultural community stage dances, bouncy castles, face painting, interactive booths, and more. And attendees are encouraged to take the bus for free, courtesy of the Regional District of Nanaimo. In addition, there will be a free bike valet service through Hub City Cycles from 8:30 to 4:30, so please come out. And finally, in the exercise of my enormous power and authority as mayor, I'm going to concede a few minutes to my friend, Councillor Perino, who has something she wants to talk about tonight.
Is it on? Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you so much. Today was a very special day. We opened the new ICU, the Intensive Care Unit at NRGH, our hospital that serves this entire region. And I just wanted to take just a couple of minutes to tell you how we got to today and how members of this particular council were involved. So to give you some background, the ICU, the current one, is over 50 years old. And back in 2013, a report was done saying it was, without a doubt, the worst ICU in the country. However, the care provided by the medical staff was considered to be the very best. So it was a really good and terrible story all at the same time. I was the CEO of the Nanaimo and District Hospital Foundation, and I started there in 2016. We saw immediately what the problem was. We started sending letters to the government to ask the minister to see us to talk about the ICU. And Minister Dix was very gracious. Back in early 2018, he agreed to meet with myself and our board chair at the time, Greg Scott, who is amazing. And, you know, I'm embarrassed to tell you that we did not invite our MLA to attend, but he showed up. The MLA was, of course, our mayor, Leonard Krogh. And I was so appreciative that you were there because you were supportive. You allowed the conversation to go, but you were very, very supportive, and it helped us to bring it to today. The next meeting we had later on was with the Regional Hospital District, and the chair was our own councillor, Ian Thorpe. And again, it was like, you know, Director Thorpe, we've got to have this, and he was so on board and got the entire board of directors to agree to do the 40% of the funding for the ICU, so we knew we had real legs under us. So, you know, Councillor Thorpe was amazing and came for future pictures. He's been at every meeting. It was nonstop. Anyway, the mayor then started, I should say at the time, our Leonard Krogh then launched his, you know, his campaign to run for mayor. This was back in 2018, and some obnoxious person, me, at the back of the room screamed out saying, "What are you going to do to get our new ICU?" To which he very politely responded, "I'll be there, we'll get it." And I never forgot that, and of course, he did exactly that. It wasn't long afterwards that our Minister of Health, Adrian Dix, came to announce that we were going to get our ICU, and our mayor at that time, of course, Leonard Krogh, agreed to be the honorary chair. And he did that because of what he'd seen from his own family experience of the ICU. And so in the first booklet that our campaign was launched, the fundraising campaign was launched to raise $5 million, there's a story about our mayor's family and what they've been through. It was quite something. Well, then, of course, COVID hit, and, you know, I mean, the world fell apart for quite some time, as you know. But no matter what, Minister Dix made sure that we started not far off of schedule. In 2021, we put the shovel in the ground, and Councillor Thorpe was there to be there beside me as we put our shovels in the ground. And today, we opened the ICU. There were a couple of things that were so important. I will never forget the work of Greg Scott, our chair, and of course today Tony Harris, who is moving forward into the next phase of the campaign. We raised $5 million throughout our region, and I can tell you that it was the quickest $5 million that I've ever raised because the public knew how important this ICU was for our region. And never did we realize that we would have to go through COVID to see just how important an ICU was. But I can tell the public, and I can say this and embarrass him totally, it wouldn't have happened without our Mayor, Leonard Krogh, and I am so appreciative. Yes, we still need to have a long-term care facility. Yes, we still need a catheterization lab. And more important than anything else, we need a new patient care tower. The way our hospital is built, it's not equipped to handle the population age or the population growth that we've had. So we will keep working, and I will keep bugging you to keep advocating. But it wouldn't have happened without both you, Mayor Krogh, and Councillor Thorpe, and I just want to say thank you so much for your work.
Councillor Perino, I am very touched by what you've had to say, and I would not have allowed you to speak if I'd known you were going to afford me so much credit, but, and I'll try not to get emotional, but today, being there at the opening, I must tell all of you that my wife and I will celebrate 50 years of marriage this fall. And on 2 separate occasions, if it wasn't for the amazing work at the ICU,
That's right.
that opportunity wouldn't be afforded to us.
That's right.
So I'm immensely grateful for your kind words, but immensely grateful to the amazing people who have struggled and worked in that horrible old ICU. I can tell you today that the new ICU, 12 beds, first rate, world class, 3 times the size of the existing facility. So the good people of Nanaimo and everyone living north of the Malahat is going to have access to a wonderful intensive care unit for which we should all be grateful and for which this community should thank itself for, under the leadership of Councillor Perino, who is CEO of the Hospital Foundation.
Thank you.
And the others you have mentioned, and Councillor Thorpe, we've been able to construct that facility.
That's right.
But I'm never going to let you get away with doing that again. Thank you.
So much fun. Thank you.
Are very kind. Now let me say something that is not sentimental in the sense that it'll make me cry, but I do with great pleasure announce that our CAO, Jake Rudolph, who I can politely say won't see 60 again, or 65, or 66, was today at 3:22 made or achieved that pinnacle of life that is most important to so many people. He became a grandfather for the first time. On that happy note, nothing to rise and report, Ms. Gurry. We do have a presentation from Patricia Wilms, Community Development Manager, Canadian Blood Services. Good evening and welcome. Come on up to the mic, introduce yourself for the record, and much appreciate you attending tonight and all the amazing work with Canadian Blood Services.
Good evening. Your Worship and members of Council, thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you this evening and make this presentation. I'm honored to be here and to share this cause that is not only my job, but is also very near and dear to my heart. I was saying to Councillor Perino, it is the easiest job to throw my energy behind every single day. None of them, no 2 days are alike, and I'm excited to share some information about us. I am certainly here to speak about our Partners for Life program, of which the City of Nanaimo is one. I will share that, but I'm going to dial it back a little bit and give you a bit more information about us. And one of my other very pleasurable tasks this evening is I'm going to honor Councillor Ian Thorpe as well. The accolades are going to just keep coming. I don't know what the next agenda item is, but so I'll just go through a little bit of background. You hear us often in the news, and I'm going to give you some information that may help paint that picture and make it a little bit more understandable. So I hope that, thank you for the lesson on the technology here, and so I'll just move through. So Canadian Blood Services was founded in 1998 with the goal in mind of restoring Canadians' faith in the safety of the blood supply. and we are tasked with ensuring that Canadian hospital patients have access to all the blood and blood products that they need. And we have expanded, as you will likely have seen over the last years. We are not just about blood any longer, so I'll go into that a little bit more. Our vision, again, something I'm really proud to stand behind, that it is to help every patient, to match every need, and to serve every Canadian. You may have heard our tagline that we are Canada's lifeline, the change from our brand refresh when it used to be "It's in you to give." Of course, it still is, but we are Canada's lifeline helps us to encompass all the product lines that are part of our business now. We are tasked with providing those safe, relevant, quality products and services so that Canadians have them when and where they need it across the country. And how do we do it? We rely entirely on the generosity, of course, of our donors, also our volunteers, and our many partners, including our Partners for Life. And as I alluded to before, we're about more than just blood, as we were from our inception. We are also involved with plasma, with stem cells, and that also includes the cord blood program, organs and tissues, and of course, blood. The connection, the human connection that happens when someone gives of themselves is incredibly powerful. And it doesn't matter what connection you make, whether it is through plasma, whether it is through joining the stem cell registry, whether it is registering your decision to donate organs and tissues through the provincial governing body, or donating blood, being an advocate. All of those connections are important, and with every one of those connections, you are saving lives. I thought I would throw a few questions and facts at you, in the politest way I can, of course. Anybody, take a guess about what percentage of Canadians have either needed themselves or known someone who has needed blood? Would you say it's 32%, 42%, or 52%?
52.
52. That is correct. Which is incredible. Blood has a shelf life. It has an expiry. And looking at, would it be 31 days, 42, or 53? This is, we're talking red blood cells.
31.
42. And a lot of people don't understand this. They may have the perception that we would be able to store it indefinitely, and we can't. It has a shelf life, which is why the need is always there. The next one is going to show us why that need is so important. How often does someone in Canada actually need blood? Every 30 seconds, every 60, or every 90?
30. 30.
30? I hear a 30. Every 60 seconds. Every minute of every day, someone in Canada needs blood. So some of those figures, letting you know that it has a shelf life, letting you know how often people require it, speaks to a little bit about why that need is constant. And here, as we approach summer, the need for donors rises during that time. As regular donors head out of their routines and go on vacation and whatnot, we need others to step up. So you may have heard us recently in the media shining a light on the need for new donors, for one, because we're always needing to grow that donor base, but also the need to help us fill all open appointments between now and the end of summer to ensure that Canadian hospital patients have what they need when they need it. People often ask, what blood types are needed? All blood types are needed. You will probably know about O negative blood type, which is the universal donor. That is a bit of liquid gold in a sense, because when precious moments count and they don't have the time to do the blood typing, this is the blood that can go to anyone. But it is important that we maintain a strong and healthy inventory. I am somewhat dismayed to tell you that the inventory is not exactly where we would like it to be at this time. It has had a bit of an impact through the pandemic, not at the time of lockdown. We were considered a desirable activity to leave home for in the height of lockdown, and we were busy, full all the time. But now that life has opened up a little bit more, there are many more activities that are enticing people back into things that they love to do. And so we're finding that level is a bit concerning right now. Canadians have always stepped up. Everybody's needs have always been met, and they will do so again. But if you're able in your circles to amplify that and shine that light on that need, we would be most grateful. I want to just show a couple of things here. We need a lot of our techies to keep track of a lot of statistics, and we understand that we need about 100,000 new donors across the country every year to keep that donor base robust. And some of the reasons that we need that is because of how much blood is needed for various things. So I'm just going to show you a little bit here. They're going to come on a little fast and furious here, but for a single cancer treatment, it could need up to blood from 5 donors. Leukemia, up to 8 donors in a week. A single brain surgery from 2 donors. A blood disorder could be 4 donors a month and ongoing for someone's entire life. A crash victim, you've got up to 50 donors. Heart surgery, up to 5, and internal bleeding could be 2 to 8 donors in a week. This paints the picture of why we need so much. The other part of the picture that will help to illuminate it a bit, and I have to admit that I was a bit taken aback when I began with the organization almost 16 years ago. Of all eligible Canadians, what percent would be your best guess as to how many actually donate? Would it be 4%, 14, or 24?
4.
You are absolutely right. And I would say since the beginning of the pandemic, we've noticed a decline in our donor base. And some of our planners are looking at that figure and saying it's probably even a little bit closer to 2 today. So if we think about it, that the picture for me is that 100% of the need is on the backs of 4% of eligible Canadians, which is incredible. Not everyone can donate. This is certainly not meant to be any sort of guilt trip to say, are you not part of that elite 4%? Because not everyone can, but if you can't, perhaps there's someone who can donate on your behalf. Encourage a young person or someone who's been curious to try it. Encourage them to say, you know what, I can't do this, but go on my behalf. I thought I would just let you know how much blood do we collect, and I wanted to also give you the picture of Nanaimo. So we run a fiscal year from the start of April to the end of March, and in 22-23, our national target was just under 780,000 units. BC delivered just over 130,000 of those, and the city of Nanaimo alone, almost 4,400 units of blood, which is incredible. That, I think, amounted to 95% of the target for that entire fiscal year, which is incredible because there are all sorts of things that can happen over the course of a year. So much gratitude to the community of Nanaimo for their loyalty. We have come for years. I'll just show you a little bit about opportunities to donate in Nanaimo. For years, we've been coming weekdays, Tuesday to Thursday, every month. And a couple of years ago, we were able to add Saturdays. It started slow. We only did 4 in the year. We're up to monthly now, once a month for Saturdays. These are the wonderful locations that we have our events at. Bevan Park typically weekdays, Bowen Park on Saturdays, and we're excited that we've had one event here at the conference center and are planning our next one in June here. I just gave a note about the next dates, and on that note, I have an asterisk for the June dates. We were meant to be in Port Alberni next week for 3 days, and as you can imagine, we thought there'd be considerable risk with that. So we have turned to the community of Nanaimo, and we have added those 3 days here next week. We're at Bevan Park as well for that. Happy to say it's starting to fill up, but spread the word that we're back again for 2 weeks in a row. A couple of quick notes I wanted to share about the Partners for Life. Partners for Life come in all shapes and sizes from all kinds of different sectors. There are literally thousands of organizations, associations, companies, schools, groups of friends across Canada that make a meaningful difference to Canadian hospital patients by joining our Partners for Life program. Some of them gather, they can come together and do group donations. Some of them are pledge partners. Some help raise awareness. Some are social media advocates. Some volunteer their time. Some join the stem cell registries. A lot of them do this life-saving work all while building their reputation. They boost their team engagement, and they celebrate their commitment to creating and building a stronger and healthier community. As I mentioned at the beginning, the City of Nanaimo is one of our valued Partners for Life, among many others in the city, in case any of you are sitting here in the gallery yet from some of the other banks and churches and schools and VIU and whatnot. What I would say is, if you are donating blood, find out if your organization is a Partner for Life and join that team so that your donations can count towards their community pledge. And just much gratitude to all these partners that help us fulfill our promise to Canadian hospital patients. We've come to the part of the agenda that brings me great pleasure now, and one of my main reasons for coming. We've been trying to do this for a little while. Councillor Ian Thorpe is one of those important partners to us. I'll speak about his activity as a partner, and then I'm going to share with you, if I may, his role as a donor as well. So Councillor Thorpe has been an incredible advocate for us. He has agreed to come and do radio remotes to promote Nanaimo Saturdays. Clearly it worked. We're monthly now from the quarterly we were doing. He has brought greetings on behalf of the city at our donor recognition events, as has Mayor Krogh as well. Has done media for us. If he's coming to do a donation, has agreed, yes, I will speak to media on your behalf. And then most importantly, last year he reached a donation milestone of 150 donations. I think it's up to 156 now, which is incredible if you consider that men can only donate every 8 weeks. So the calendar has to line up pretty well for him to make 6 donations in a calendar year. And we're sitting at 156. So Councillor Thorpe, it's my pleasure to present a certificate of appreciation. And the certificate for the 150 donations is coming from our national office as well.
Yes. Now look at the camera.
Good job, Ian.
Well done. Way to go. Thou true and faithful servant.
I promise I only have a couple of points and then I will leave you to get on with your evening. I just put a slide together to show the many different ways that a person can make a difference being part of Canada's Lifeline. Of course, there is being a blood donor. In those places where it's possible, a person can be a plasma donor, a platelet donor. You can register to be part of the stem cell registry, register an intent to donate organs. There's, of course, financial giving. Lots of partners help us meet some goals that way. There's our Partners for Life program, volunteering, and of course, raising awareness. I want to close by just showing a couple of the reasons people have given to us as to why they donate blood. Some of them have learned how often people need it. They've learned about the expiry date and so on. You can read those there for yourselves. But the one that I want to close with is the final one. A lot of people, if you ask questions, they'll say, I don't know why I haven't done that before. I guess it's because nobody asked. And so tonight, as all of us, all of my colleagues, when we give these sorts of presentations, we are asking people to join Canadian Blood Services in whatever capacity you're able. It may be in booking an appointment. It may be in recruiting new donors. It might be in helping raise awareness. And in doing so, you don't just make a difference, you make all the difference. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you to Councillor Thorpe, who's asked to respond.
Very briefly, Your Worship, I'm feeling quite embarrassed at the moment, but I wanted just to say thank you to Ms. Wilms for her work and the work of her staff for such a worthwhile and worthy cause. And I'll take the opportunity, Your Worship, if I may, to really encourage any of our viewers or listeners to consider donating blood. I can assure you that if I can do it, anybody can. It's quick, it's painless. The Canadian Blood Services staff are wonderful people to meet and deal with, and it's always an enjoyable experience, and you get free cookies afterwards too. So again, thank you very much for all that you do, Patricia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no committee minutes, Ms. Gurry. Motion for adoption of consent items, unless someone wants one pulled. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is delegations unrelated to agenda items. And we have Chris Hyland, President and CEO of BC One Call, and Tony Roberts, Director of Membership Recruitment for Retention, BC One Call, City of now becoming a member of BC One Call. You're coming to us through the ether, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Can hear you, can't quite see you yet. We can see your material.
Oh, no.
There you are. Nice to see you.
And you as well. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Krogh and Nanaimo City Council. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Chris Hyland, President of BC One Call, and I am joined with my colleague, Tony Roberts, who is the Director of Membership Recruitment and Retention. And we would like to speak to you this evening about the benefits of becoming a member of BC One Call. City of Nanaimo, I know very well with my work in the gas business. When I was in Nanaimo, I know many of the folks that are on work for the city. And I know Mayor Krogh very well as well over the years, and who has demonstrated a great supporter of damage prevention and the BC One Call organization. And I'd like, Tony, if you wouldn't mind stepping in and putting up a few stats, a few pieces of information for Council and Mayor Krogh to appreciate. Are you muted? While you're unmuting, I'll jump in. Sorry, Tony. The city of Nanaimo, they're not a member of BC One Call. They are a user of the damage prevention process. The Parks Department in 2022 placed 709 locate requests, which is fantastic. And within the city boundaries, there were a total of 3,400 tickets placed. So just to put it in perspective, and I apologize if I should have started by expressing my thanks that we sent a pre-read package for you folks to read to give a little background. I know our time is limited. That's why I'm jumping ahead a bit. I appreciate the fact that you hopefully are aware of what the BC One Call organization does. We are the conduit between the excavation digging community and the members that are owners of infrastructure, sewer, municipalities, telecommunications, gas, hydro, and so on and so forth. The city of Nanaimo placed over 3,000 tickets, 700 of which were placed by the city themselves, which is great. And I won't say, however, there were about 2,500 tickets that went out to people requesting information that did not get to the city of Nanaimo. So to paint a picture, if I'm a homeowner or a contractor within the city of Nanaimo boundaries, pardon me, and I place a ticket, I will get gas information, telecommunications, electricity, and so on, but I will not get municipal storm, water, sewer, this kind of information. If I did not know that I needed to make another call to the city of Nanaimo, there's some critical infrastructure that the city is responsible for that I may damage inadvertently. So it's a very good insurance policy to become a member of BC One Call, to have all your infrastructure noted and placed within drawings, so everyone needs the information can have access to it. So I'll stop babbling for a second. Tony, if you wanted to jump in.
What I'm finding is that I know that cost is a major factor within the city. The cost at the present time with the number of locates generated in your community would be about $7,000 a year. But the cost savings alone far outweigh those. So what happens to those 2,700 people that make a request to you that your staff, if they do get a phone call, handle those calls in a one-off meeting? So somebody's on the phone talking to staff, and your staff is now tied up while they come up with that information. So that's some of the savings that I can see for the city staff. Also, on numerous occasions, the fire departments have come to us and said, listen, every time there's a gas hit, and last week there were 2 gas hits in Nanaimo, we have to send out a fire engine and stand by that gas hit until the gas company has repaired said damage. So the cost of that alone is quite significant. And we have a whole bunch of municipalities that have joined just because the fire chief insisted that the council become and staff become members of open call system.
Gentlemen, I have to tell you, your 5 minutes are up. If you could wrap up, please, and then council may have questions, please.
Okay, thank you very much. We would just like council, mayor and council to please consider the benefits of joining BC One Call to encompass the entire, we appreciate, we know the city of Nanaimo is very conscious of safety. This is just one other aspect that we firmly believe could add to the full scope of safety within the city of Nanaimo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And tell me, the number of BC municipalities who belong to the organization, I think it's 100 and, where are we? 70% are members, yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct.
And do you know what portion of the population that covers by chance?
just over 50%.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. You mentioned that our fire trucks go out to these calls. So if we belong to 811, why would they not go to these calls? Or sorry, not 811, BC1, sorry.
Well, it's all about people that damage infrastructure that do not call BC1 call. So this is the drive for us to continue increasing and encouraging membership.
Okay, I'll have a question for staff after.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the delegation? I'm not seeing any. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being patient tonight.
Very much appreciated for the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor
Take care.
Armstrong, you have a question for staff?
Yeah, I'm going to wait till Mr. Sims sits. Mr. Sims, we've heard this before, and you clarified some points for us on what happens from a city perspective. Could you do that again, please?
Thanks, Your Worship and Councillor Armstrong. I'd like to assure the public that because we're not a member of BC1 Call doesn't mean that things are more dangerous. And that's a critical point I'd like to make. The city's developed a system with its that's used in other municipalities such as Surrey, that's developed a system with its engineers, contractors, anyone and other utilities that anybody may have access to our as-built drawings. So it's a direct auto downloader, so people have the opportunity to sign in and look at the area where they'll be digging. In addition, as the delegation mentioned, we also do activate BC1 Call for our own excavations all over the city. So we're looking for gas, hydro, buried hydro, and buried tel. So all of that does occur. It's required really from a safety point of view. But the system that we have in place creates an opportunity for the requester of the information to take on the responsibility for the information rather than having it funneled through a third party, passing from hand to hand. We have direct information transfer to those residents or to those contractors or engineers. And typically, I would note that we don't provide locates for gas. That's totally on the gas company. And often what utilities will do, what contractors will do, will bring in a private utility locating firm. And those firms know very well the whole process, not only with the city, but with all of the other private utilities as well. We've looked at this before. We've been approached by BC1 a number of times over the years, and our analysis shows that we would actually have to spend significant staff time preparing packages for transfer through to BC1 Call. We estimate anywhere from half to a full FTE of additional work as a result. Developing this automatic self-serve downloader tool just takes that sort of need for an additional FTE out of the equation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Sims, so as I understand, staff are doing a lot of what we call the same work now, but what's our response, if you will, or the cost to the city that may arise from damage to underground infrastructure if people do dig it up and don't know where it is, and then there's an insurance claim and somebody has to monitor that, et cetera. So I'm following on the point made by Mr. Roberts.
We certainly do see significant breakage, but that's sort of I wouldn't say inadvertent breakage by wayward digging. That's not a very common effect. I think, as I say, most of the reputable contractors, engineers, et cetera, and utility companies that work in the city know to activate BC1 Call, know to activate the city. I can't imagine that there's going to be much in the way of inadvertent, like there's the occasional homeowner that may hit their own gas service because they're not aware of that. It's not something that we can help, but typically on private property, it's not as much of an issue, and it's not as not that common, quite frankly.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff? If not, on to reports. First, 12A, Annual Municipal Report. Ms. Gurry, please.
Thank you, Worship. So the 2022 Annual Municipal Report is on your agenda this evening in order for us to hear from the public, should anybody wish to, as well as get your approval. Section 98 of the Community Charter requires municipalities in BC to publish an annual report before June 30th of each year and make the report available for public review, which it has been now on our website for a number of weeks. As you all know, and as you have reported recently, Your Worship, the city was awarded the Canadian Award for Financial Reporting from the Government of Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada for its 2021 Annual Municipal Report. And this award is given to municipal governments that publish a report that is easily readable, efficiently organized, and clearly communicates the municipal government's financial picture. And this is the second year, or that was the second year in a row that the city has received this award, and hopefully we will win it for a third year in a row with this current annual municipal report. So this year marks the 19th annual report published by the City of Nanaimo, and this year's report is themed Nanaimo Reimagined, commemorating the completion of Nanaimo Reimagine and the City Plan in 2022. And it also contains components from each of the departments for the year ending December 31st, 2022. So I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of the different departments for providing the content for this report, offering the different work that the city does in all of those areas. The finance department for their excellent financial reports that are included in the annual report, and a special thanks to Tracy Lowen, our communications and marketing specialist, who for the third year in a row now has designed these reports, has organized them, and made the content readable, and has done a great job. So I want to give her a special thanks. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gurry, and if that were a motion, I'd happily second it. I think it's a wonderful document, and everyone who's involved in it should be very proud of the result. I'm not seeing any questions. Someone care to make the recommended motion? Moved Councillor Hemmons, seconded Councillor Armstrong. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much again. 12B, Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund. Ms. Mercer.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the city has an opportunity to apply for a grant through the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund. So this fund invests in public infrastructure that mitigates the potential economic, environmental, and social impacts of climate change and strengthens community resilience to disasters triggered by natural hazards and extreme weather events. So with this grant, stacking rules do apply, and the maximum covered is 40% of total eligible costs. And project spending must occur after the funding approval is given and before December 31st of 2032. So the application deadline is July 19th of this year, and as of yet, no announcement date has been given for this grant. So staff have identified the South Fork Dam seismic upgrade project as a good fit for this grant stream, and the work is expected to start in 2030. So staff are here to answer any questions you have about this grant application and the project.
Thank you very much. I don't think we'll have a lot of questions about asking for money. We're used to that.
I know.
Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and a question through you to Ms. Mercer. So the project that under the discussion section is to start in 2030. We can hold, assuming we'll get the grant, we can hold the money that period of time without any repercussions?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a report only. Much appreciated. We wish ourselves good luck. Next item is 12C, Nanaimo Operations Center Phase 1 Boring Bylaw. Ms. Mercer, please.
Thank you. So since 2020, staff have been working on a project to redevelop the Public Works Yard, and we have named this project the Nanaimo Operations Center, or the NOC project. So a master plan has been prepared for this property to address all the issues that have been identified. So a report and business case were presented in 2021, and the business case recommended that the project be broken into 4 phases, as it's more manageable for operations disruption as well as funding perspectives. So at the May 1st, 2023 council meeting, staff presented the phase 1 of the project with an estimated cost of $48.5 million. And the breakdown of that amount is in the report. So at the meeting, council directed staff to proceed with the project, phase 1, with funding coming from borrowing. So we are here to, based on the current MFA 20-year indicative lending rate of 4.62%, the estimated annual debt servicing cost is $3.9 million per year. So we're here tonight asking for first 3 readings of the be given to the Nanaimo Operations Center Phase 1 borrowing bylaw, and this will allow staff to start the AAP process for electoral approval as required by legislation. So I will make one note. The report states that the AAP process will start on August 23rd of this year. However, a change was made after this report was prepared, and the process will start on September 27th instead. So we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any questions. Councillor Gesselbrock?
I'd like to move that the Nanaimo Operations Center Phase 1 Borrowing Bylaw 2023, number 7362, to authorize the borrowing of up to $48,500,000 for the construction of the Nanaimo Operations Center and the required supporting facilities, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Gesselbrock?
I'd like to move the Nanaimo Operations Center Phase 1 Borrowing Bylaw 2023, number 7362, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Move that the Nanaimo Operations Center Phase 1 Borrowing Bylaw 2023, number 7362, pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Let me just say to the general public, as we've just authorized borrowing up to $48.5 million, the speed with which that's occurred is how shall I say, backgrounded by the fact that this has come before council on many occasions for public discussion, substantive reports, and very serious consideration of the extreme necessity for starting on this very major and important project. So I wouldn't want the public to think that we just spend $48.5 million without giving it any second thought. The next is the appropriate motion to follow. It's 12D. And that's the alternative approval process, Nanaimo Operations Center Phase 1 Borrowing Bylaw 2023, number 7362. And that's over to Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Worship. So as Ms. Mercer was pointing out, we are now seeking your approval to proceed with an alternative approval process for the borrowing of the Nanaimo Operations Center Phase 1. In order for council to proceed with the borrowing and the building of Phase 1 for Nanaimo Operations Center, council is required to have approval of the electors prior to the adoption of the bylaw and in accordance with the community charter. Approval of the electors may be received by way of an alternative approval process, which this report is seeking approval for. And if approval is obtained, council may then proceed with the bylaw adoption if less than 10% of the electors oppose the proposal by submitting a valid electoral response. So we are asking that council to make the recommendation to determine the total number of electors of the area to which the approval process applies, and that is currently 77,990, and we did have that confirmed. Establish a deadline of 4:30 p.m. on Friday, November 3rd to receive electoral responses, and that is allowing 37 days where 32 is required to receive those responses. We are adding additional days, and that you approve the electoral response form as attached to the staff report dated June 19th, 2023.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gurry. Anyone care to make the recommended motion? Moved Councillor Gesselbrock, seconded Councillor Perino. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is 12E, Parks and Recreation Fees and Charges Amendment. Again, something we've seen a lot of over a long period of time. Ms. Curry, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is a subsequent amendment bylaw to the recently adopted Parks and Recreation Fees and Charges bylaw that Council just recently adopted, as I mentioned. So there was an error in that bylaw where we were missing the fees for the facility admission rates and associated fees. It was inadvertently missed. So to rectify this, we are asking you to approve this amendment bylaw, which will then be consolidated into the bylaw you previously adopted.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gesselbrock.
I would like to move that the Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw 2023, number 7336.05, a bylaw to include the facility admission rates and other associated fees, pass first reading.
Seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Move that Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw 2023, number 7336.05, pass second reading.
Seconded Councillor Hemmons. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Move that Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw 2023, number 7336.05, pass third reading.
Seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is 12F, Strengthening Communities Services Program Summary. Mr. Lindsay, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. As outlined in your agenda, so the purpose of this report is simply an information report to give you some information on round 1 and round 2 of the Strengthening Communities grant program, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Wood to quickly run you through the report.
Councillor Manley.
Involves a couple of projects I'm involved with, the Unitarian Shelter.
It does, Councillor Manley. I'm just going to inquire of Ms. Gurry, even though there's no motion attached to this. Out of abundance of caution, should Councillor Manley excuse himself? I suppose if someone made a motion, we'd be stuck, right? Yeah.
Yes, Your Worship, and ultimately, I think, well, I know it's Councillor Manley's decision, and based on what could come subsequently, yes, probably best, so thank you.
Don't worry, we'll let you back in for the other stuff.
Appreciate that.
Carry on.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm pleased just to provide Council with an update, a summary of all the programs and initiatives that have been funded through our Strengthening Communities Services program. So in 2021, in round 1, the city received $2.5 million. And in 2022, in round 2, we received $625,000. So these funds, you probably are aware, are provided through a joint partnership through the federal and provincial government to respond to the COVID pandemic, to support unsheltered populations and address any related community impacts. So through round 1, the city was able to utilize these funds to support the shower program that's run down at Caledonia Park, the urban cleanup program that was run by Connective, formerly known as John Howard Society, the Community Connect pilot program that ran in the Old City Quarter. That was a partnership with the Old City Quarter and the city and some of the businesses in the area. Security services for the downtown, including sanitation services, portable toilets, where there was very limited access to public washrooms during COVID. And with our partnership with Snuneymuxw First Nations, we were able to support temporary housing units through the fourplex units, scattered site housing, as well as the housing supports and services that were needed to provide support to those temporary housing units and the scattered site units. There was also some funding for cultural services and training for frontline workers working with people who are experiencing homelessness, and we were able to utilize some of these funds to train some of our community safety officers as well. Through round two, we were able to fund 4 different programs and initiatives. The first one being the breakfast program, and that includes the current distributed model. The funding for that program will end on July 9th. We are also able to fund the Extreme Weather Shelter and Supports Program. So council will remember that we used the majority of these funds to fund 2 daytime warming centers. And then we also were able to fund some extreme winter shelters as well for daytime. And we have about $35,000 left in that fund to be able to provide some heat relief support services. So based on input from our community partners, we're looking to distribute small amounts of that funds to community partners to utilize to purchase water, sunscreen, some shade tents, because we did find based on feedback that most folks like to shelter where they are, because in Nanaimo we're pretty lucky with riparian areas and treed areas, so they really like to stay where they are so they could bring those heat relief to them as well. In addition, we're looking to install possible water stations or additional misters with the leftover funds as well. Another program that was funded through round 2 was through the homeless outreach team with Sinemoke, and that provided wages for staff support and also supports around their outreach vehicle. And the last one was through the Community Policing Volunteer Program, we were able to enhance their Crime Watch program through the leasing of a second vehicle. So all program funds for round 1 unfortunately have to be spent by July 31st, 2023, and for round 2, August 31st, 2023. So just happy to answer any questions that council may have about some of the programs and initiatives.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Councillor Himmons.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to staff for this report. My read is that there's 2 programs at risk here when the funding goes. The first is the portable toilets. I just see that the funds for the portable toilets will end on June 30th. I'd like to know if we have any considerations around extending that and what that means if we don't. And the second is around the breakfast program and just a sense, if I may, from the community where they're at. That's a really important program for residents downtown, and I'm just kind of curious where the community, how the community's facing that, if you have any insight.
Through your worship to Councillor Hemmons, I know with the portable toilets, now that we're kind of seeing the light of the tunnel with the COVID pandemic, lots of more access has been provided through different public points of accessing washrooms. But there are no funding, after the fact. We right now have 1 portable toilet on Skinner Street, and that's the last one that we're funding right now. And we have had challenges with servicing the portable toilets just through, fires or any kind of vandalism that has happened with the portable toilets. So that's been a challenge in the past, and that has used some of those funds. For the breakfast program right now, we definitely keep in touch with our community partners to see what kind of capacity and resources are out there. In the past, agencies have applied through different funding sources like Reaching Home to be able to provide some of those resources to the funds, but through our work with our community partners, there's nothing that's come forward as of yet.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the work of staff, and that's an important report for the listening audience tonight to hear what's happened with these public dollars and the kind of results it's achieved for many of our population who face some real challenges. Thank you. The next is item 12G, basic shelters - 100 units on city property structure types. Mr. Lindsay again, please.
Thank you, Worship. This report's in response to a motion that we received earlier this year from Council. And again, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Wood to walk you through the report, as she was the team lead and the author on this report. So over to Ms. Wood.
Once more with feeling, please.
Can I get the PowerPoint up, please? Thank you. So as Mr. Lindsay alluded to, I'm providing council with a summary of the various structures that are currently being used locally and in other communities to provide emergency shelter or housing to individuals who are experiencing homelessness. In the report, Council will see that each shelter option is listed, a description of the structure type is provided, along with any information that we were able to get from manufacturers about the structure cost, any amenities that might be included, and potential for compliance with our building code, our BC Building Code. And it's important to note that these are just costs related to the actual structure itself, so it doesn't include things like site preparation or servicing or any support services that may be required to operate the site. And some structure types do not include washroom facilities, so that's something that we would have to consider as additional costs. And you'll see later on down, I provide different examples from different communities, but for example, many of you may be aware of the village site and some of the cabin villages that were happening in Cowichan. And in a past site, the one that they're currently operating, it costs approximately $69,300 to provide washroom facilities for up to 34 people. So potentially, in an example like that, for up to 100 people, you're looking at just over $200,000. So the first structure example is around tent shelters. So they can come in a variety of sizes and can provide shelter to a number of tents depending on size. So also known as picnic shelters, we commonly see those in our community. Sizes can commonly range from 13 square meters to 37 square meters that could provide shelter for 6 to 8 small tents. Prices definitely range depending on the manufacturer from anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 per structure, or if you're looking to provide shelter for up to 100 tents, anywhere from $34,000 to $62,500. 4 local communities have used tents and tent shelters temporarily, including the town of Ladysmith, Municipality of North Cowichan, City of Duncan, and Cowichan Tribes First Nation. And these sites were set up temporarily in response to the COVID pandemic and the limited beds that were found in the shelter system. These sites were limited to about a dozen people and were supported by social support services, and facilities like portable toilets and portable washing stations had to be brought in along with meals. Sprung structures, we've been hearing a lot about this recently across Canada. They come in a variety of sizes from widths from 9.1 meters to 45.7 meters and can be any size needed to fit any lot dimensions. They're insulated and designed to be building code compliant. The structures can be placed on concrete or in an empty parking lot, and sprung structures are meant to be temporary but have been used as longer-term solutions in other communities. Sprung structures can be rented or purchased. So as an example, rented up to 5 years for a structure that's about a 927.2 square meter costs roughly $8,832 monthly. So this same structure can be purchased for $564,582, which is about an estimate of about $5,640 per bed. Sprung structures are being used across the country and throughout the United States, including cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco. And in the city of Toronto, 3 different sprung structures are being used as what they call respite centers to address overwhelming demand on shelter systems. So these are just some photos of what it looks like internally and externally. Each of the structure houses up to 100 people and meets the Ontario accessibility standards, connected to their city water and sewer systems, and have cooling and heating systems. Each respite center has built-in washrooms and laundry facilities. However, these were additional costs, and the meals you can see from the example in there are prepared off-site, but they're delivered to the respite center. We've been hearing a lot about cabin villages, and it's a relatively new approach to supporting individuals living in homelessness. We've seen, the creation of the village site in Duncan, or some of the newly created sites in Port Alberni and Vancouver. Cabins normally contain about 1 to 2 beds, a small table, and just some small storage space for clothing and personal items. And unit costs per cabin really depends on the types, the sizes, and the durability. Cabins that are building code compliant will cost more. The estimated range for individual cabins, range all the way from $4,000 to about $14,500 per unit. And for around 100 cabins, this estimated range would be from $400,000 to $1.4 million. Many of the higher-priced cabins include amenities like smoke detectors, electrical subpanels, hardwire connections, baseboard heating, and are typically building code compliant. However, washing facilities and other site preparations required would add additional costs. So here I've just presented some examples of the cabins being used in Port Alberni currently right now, and also the cabins that have been used in a site in the city of Duncan. So the cabins just on the left there are being utilized in Port Alberni, and they're 8.9 square meters in size, and the estimated cost for this type of cabin is $13,850. And these particular cabins are building code compliant. The City of Duncan has utilized several sites as cabin villages, and as a cost example, the cabin village previously at the St. Julian Street contained 13 cabins, and the site preparation cost for that particular site for water and sewer installation cost approximately $180,000, and that was in 2021. Just some more examples here for you as well. The cabins on the right, you see the internal, that's the City of Vancouver. They're about 9.2 square meters in size and cost roughly $14,500 per cabin. They provide 2 beds. And you can also see from the photo that there is a heating and cooling system included in each cabin. The photos just on the left there are actually examples of cabin villages in Boston and Los Angeles, and I thought council would be interested to see the different types of layout that they can use in a cabin village. So workforce housing are modular units or dormitories that provide accommodation and mostly include shared washrooms with showers. And the size of a modular unit can be adjusted based on the number of units or beds that the operator is desiring. Workforce housing is building code compliant, with each room typically providing room for a single bed, a small table, and a small storage unit, and are turnkey ready. The estimated cost per unit ranges between $21,000 to $45,000, depending on the available stock and whether you actually are fabricating new workforce housing if it's requested. But the estimated costs include delivery and installation. So for up to 100 people, the cost would roughly be $2.1 million to $4.5 million. Council will be familiar with the example that I provided on the last slide. I'll bring that back up for you. As Newcastle Place, operated by Island Care Crisis Society. And so in this particular project, each modular contains up to 28 to 30 individual units and provides shared washrooms and showers, kind of like a Jack and Jill setup. The estimated cost for these particular units for Newcastle Place is $45,000, and the average size of the units at Newcastle Place are 5.9 square meters. However, other workforce housing can be as large as 8 square meters. What's interesting about the layout here is that the way the layout of the units are, they place the units around shared spaces such as a kitchen, recreation room, and staff offices, and this allows for balance between privacy and safety for individuals who may need assistance while they're in their units. And this is just some additional examples of what workforce housing can look like. The photos on the left are just some modulars that are getting prepared for delivery, and the photos on the right show some visual examples of what an interior of the unit may look like. So another modular type available contains 10 units, so it's more of a communal living style with 3 shared bathrooms with showers, a shared kitchen, and a common living area. And in this design, one of the washrooms can be constructed to meet accessibility standards. Each modular is turnkey ready and includes a full kitchen and is BC Building Code compliant. The size of the entire modular is about 211.8 square meters, and each unit is about an average of 9.6 square meters. The estimated cost for one modular with 10 units is just over $475,000, which works out to be about $47,590 per unit. And that includes the delivery and installation of the modulars. So this is actually a new modular type that's provided by a local manufacturer, specifically around the need to provide emergency shelter with the most cost-effective per square foot design. But I think this also illustrates the industry's willingness to be a part of the solution. Here's another example, again, of industry and builders around BC and on Vancouver Island are trying to create a variety of different design concepts specific to housing individuals who experience homelessness. A firm in Cowichan Valley has a design concept that accommodate 28 self-contained units, each unit being about 11.4 square meters. And this example is only provided as one possible design option of builders who design shelters. You know, many other design concepts can be explored, but in this design example, there are 12 units on the main floor and 16 units on the second floor. There's some shared common areas, including a laundry facility, a meeting space, a computer lab, and some storage space. Each unit includes a bathroom, shower, a mini kitchenette, space for a bed, and a small storage area. So this is just a design concept, but a preliminary review by Couch and Valley Builder Inspector determined compliance with building code. Estimated construction costs are about $50,000 per unit, or $1.4 million for the 28-unit development. So for 84 units, or 3 of these 28-unit develops, estimated cost would be $4.2 million. So as I mentioned earlier, through round 1 of the Strengthening Community Services Program grant and in partnership with Snuneymuxw First Nation, the city was able to fund the purchase of 3 4-plex modulars located on Snuneymuxw Reserve land, and each modular contains 4 living units, each with their own bathroom, shower, and mini kitchenette, and each unit includes heating and cooling options as well. They're building code compliant, and 1 unit in each 4-plex is also wheelchair accessible. And each unit size are, individual unit size, are 22.4 square meters, and the wheelchair accessible unit is 25.6 square meters. And the cost to purchase 1 4-plex module is $280,000, which is roughly $70,000 per unit. And this again includes the delivery installation of the modulars on site. And for this particular project, it includes the stairs and the ramps for the accessible units. So for 100 units or 25 modulars, the estimated cost would be about $7 million. Although costs for site preparation and servicing are site-specific, as an example, just as this project, the overall cost for Snuneymuxw 4-plexes for site servicing was $70,000 in 2022. So council will be aware of the multi-level modular projects that are currently being built in the city. As the example provided here is 702 Nichols Street. So multi-level modulars are built with a higher level of functionality, durability, and energy efficiencies, and can provide both temporary and permanent housing solutions. They can be disassembled for reuse at a different location at a later date. They're typically built in a shorter time frame and historically are more cost-effective than site-built construction. The estimated cost per unit for multi-level modulars is $300,000, or roughly $30 million for 100 units. The building at 702 Nichols Street is a perfect example of the multi-modular level. Sorry, it's a bit of a tongue twister saying that. It has 4 floors with 52 units of supportive housing and 14 bridge to housing beds. To complete this project, 48 separate modulars were constructed, delivered, and installed on site. And each private unit is an average of 32.5 square meters and includes a private bathroom, shower, and a mini kitchenette. So these are just some of the structure types examples provided for council. And these are currently being used locally or across the country as temporary or permanent housing options for sheltering individuals experiencing homelessness. So we're just here to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Very thorough report. Much appreciated. Councillor Hemmons.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to express my gratitude to staff for pulling all of this information together. It's helpful for council in our deliberations of which housing forms to pursue. So thank you.
Likewise, I'd like to echo the thanks, and it will be helpful. It will also be of great assistance in us dealing with BC Housing as well as we talk about memorandum of understanding with respect to the incredible need for housing of various kinds in our city, and I'm, again, on behalf of council, much appreciate the work. The next item is H, Park Avenue Concept Plan, -933 Park Avenue, draft June 2023, land use options. Mr. Lindsay.
Thank you, Your Worship. Purpose of this report is to present you with options for the Park Avenue Concept Plan, which is city-owned property at 933 Park Avenue, and also to get your direction to proceed with what we're calling phase 2 of consultation. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Brinkman just to quickly walk you through the report.
Ms. Brinkman, good evening.
Hello, good evening. Thank you. So we are pleased to present a draft Park Avenue Concept Plan to you. And the city purchased the property at 933 Park Avenue in 2019. And staff commenced a consultation process in August 2022 to develop a park plan for the property. And the park plan will guide the future park use and improvements for the land. The summary of the engagement process to date can be found on the Park Avenue Concept Plan project page on the city website. And there is a link to the engagement summary in the June 19 council agenda. So 6 goals are outlined for the park. Protection of the natural environment, such as the wetland and heritage trees on site, passive recreation with a nature playground for children, food security such as small-scale farming, agriculture and food-related education and gathering opportunities, connectivity with trails on the property linking to the broader community, and affordable housing. And the draft concept plan contains 4 options for a potential affordable housing site. So as Mr. Lindsay mentioned, at this stage we are recommending that Council receive the draft Park Avenue concept plan and provide direction to proceed with the Phase 2 consultation to get input on the draft plan.
Thank you very much. In order, Councillors Gesselbrock and Perino.
Thanks, Your Worship. I appreciate the work staff did on the concept plan, and it looks great, and for taking in the feedback about the footprint. I'm prepared to move the recommendation. I'd like to move the recommendation with the amendment that option 1, the 1.75 acre footprint, be removed as an option that'd go out for public feedback. That was a motion, yeah.
Is there a seconder?
Second.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmons. Discussion.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that from the feedback, it's pretty clear that there was quite a lot of opposition from the community about the larger footprint for the housing, and I think there was a very large public mobilization to purchase the property under the auspices of being the 5-acre farm and not the 3-acre farm or that. So I think the expectation that it would be primarily used for education and growing food and supporting food security. I think having some housing option was important for council, and I think that providing a 1-acre footprint in those various options that are there is sufficient to meet that and garner interest for if we were going out for an EOI or whatnot. So I think that the 1-acre footprint strikes a reasonable balance, and I personally like the thin strip along the upper edge of the northern part of the property is the best, but I think allowing some flexibility in there is would be helpful. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, it was not my original question, but I was wondering if, unfortunately, just the sound in this room, I was not completely sure of what Councillor Gesselbrock, what the amendment was. Can you just repeat it for me, just so I have a better understanding?
It was to withdraw the first option, which is it includes 1.75 acre designation for housing.
Okay, good.
All the other
Okay.
options are smaller.
Well, that's helpful. Thank you so much. And if I could just go to staff to ask a question. So I wondered what the Phase 2 public review and input process looked like. If you could just explain how that will work.
Through Your Worship, yeah. So for certain, we would post the plan. We could use the Get Involved site, but just to post the plan to get feedback through the city's Get Involved site or website to get feedback that way. We could host a neighborhood event similar to what we did in August 2022 to get feedback, like an open house to get feedback that way. So those were 2 main ways we were thinking of at this stage. Mm-hmm.
And would this be in the near future? Is that what you're thinking?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Manley, then Councillor Armstrong.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. During the presentation, you said potential sites for affordable housing, but I don't see that language in the actual report. So one of the options I think could be considered is just keeping it as a park. And I just did a Google search for historic places, 5-acre farm, Nanaimo, and I found our registered historic site on Canada's Historic Places, formally recognized in 2002 and listed on the Canadian Registry in 2005. And that's on 3rd Avenue at the corner of Howard, where there's 50 houses and 130 apartment buildings, apartment units. And so that is our officially designated heritage site for the 5 acres, which has a lot of historic significance in this community. the work that Samuel Robbins did to preserve Bowen Park, to create what was the breadbasket of the Mid-Island region. So I know that there's going to be feedback about that when you bring this plan forward, because as Councillor Gesselbrock has mentioned, a lot of people mobilized towards protecting this last sample of this historic process to create Western Canada's first planned agriculture community. In terms of some of the plans, the dimensions of affordable housing, the dimensions on number 4, I think are the most workable, even if they went all the way to Park Avenue, from Park Avenue to Boardwalk, because that's the least viable agricultural land of the whole parcel. The other way the other squares are laid out cover over some of the viable agricultural land that was worked by the Torgerson family and the family that owned it before that, the Market Garden area. So those are my comments. I'm sure that there'll be lots of good feedback from the community when the plan goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Manley, Councillor Armstrong, and then Councillor Gesselbrock.
Yeah, 2 points. To Councillor Manley's point, the issue with not building housing was we used money designated to build housing to purchase the land. So we would have to find some way to pay that back because we can't use those funds otherwise. And for me, that was a big, one of the big reasons why I agreed to the purchase was so that we could get affordable housing or rent geared to income on those lands, especially for people that might want to work there. So I think for me, I would like to see some, definitely some affordable housing. I'd actually prefer it to be geared rent to income or income to rent, whatever that, geared, whatever. But my question is to staff. Based on the motion that was made by Councillor Gesselbrock, does that have an impact on the plan by eliminating that?
The immediate impact would be there'd be one less option we would take out to the community, but if there's options that council believe are not supportable, I think now's the appropriate time to take them off the table.
Thank you.
Councillor Gesselbrock, then Councillor Thorpe.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yeah, I think that the idea of housing on there was that there could be housing geared for folks that maybe you know using the land, working it, and potentially for nonprofits. And so I think putting that out as a concept is important. And I'm just curious, like say for example, we put this plan out to the public for feedback, and there's overwhelming feedback that no, we should just leave the 5-acre farm and not pursue housing on it. We're not locked into having housing on it, should that, be the feedback that we receive.
Your Worship, at the end of the day, it's council's property to do with as you see appropriate. So if the end result is council felt that it should all remain park, then absolutely that's within your abilities. I do want to say I'd have to follow up on Councillor Armstrong's comment about where the original funding came from. It may be that we'd have to go back and look at reallocating those reserves, but I'm not certain about that at this point. I think I'd have to confer with the Finance Department and follow up with council if that was something you wanted to do.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Speaking to the proposed amendment, I don't think I can support it because although I do support the idea of some housing on this piece of property, I think the intent of this exercise is to get fulsome public feedback. And as far as I'm concerned, putting all options on the table are the way to do that. I don't think it's up to us to limit the choices that the neighborhood or the citizens can respond to. And in fact, if some feel that there's another direction that we should go in, then they should be free to express that as an option as well. So I say throw it wide open and include all of the options. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am absolutely on board with Councillor Thorpe, sort of stole my thunder in a sense. I don't think it's appropriate at this stage to limit the options on the basis of what has been the feedback to date. How much interest this attracted before, or how much interest it may attract in the future. I think the public is entitled to consider all the options, and as Councillor Thorpe has indicated, I'd love to see somebody with a place to say none of the above, and they agree with Councillor Manley, the whole thing should be a park. although I'm not sure that the recognition of colonial history implied in his recommendation as an historic site may be entirely appropriate. But having said that, I don't think we should be limiting options. I appreciate the work of staff to date in bringing this forward, but this is not the time to limit options. And as Mr. Lindsay has reminded all of us, it's coming back to council for a final decision, and we will have to do that on the basis of the information we've received and what lobbying efforts may have been made by whoever. But this is not the time to deny the public an alternative that staff has spent some time preparing, which I assume represents to some extent information that they, well, to a large extent, information they've already received from the public. So I'm not prepared to support the motion as it stands. Councillor Gesselbrook.
Thanks, Your Worship. I do believe this is the second round, and we did go out showing concept plans for the park, and one of the concept plan did show that full 1.75 acre parcel being used for housing, and from my recollection there was substantial opposition to that idea, and so that's why we directed staff to reformulate things, and they came back with a few smaller footprints. So I do think that this is the next iteration, and listening to what that feedback was, I think it is appropriate not to need to pursue that one, but I think we'll end up at the same result regardless. So it's 6 in one, half a dozen in the other, but I still support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to clarify some language procedurally. Councillor Gesselbrock proposed an alternative motion, so it's not an amended motion you're voting on. He just proposed a motion that's different from the recommendation. So that's the motion on the floor right now.
Quite right. Not seeing any further. Councillor Manley.
Thank you. I would like to propose that we offer a fifth option, that it just,
you'd have to make,
after the vote, I'd like to propose a fifth option, that the land just remain intact as is.
Let's have the vote on the motion as it is. If it's defeated, then we can come back and put any motion we wish on the floor.
Okay.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion as proposed, Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, and Hemmens, and Manley, and those opposed, Councillors Armstrong, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Thorpe, and Councillor Perino. The motion is defeated on a 4-4. We are now open to any new motion. Councillor Manley. Sorry, Councillor Armstrong's quite quicker than you. She managed to get there first, and you're not showing up.
I actually want to move the recommended motion.
And that might be procedurally the better way to do it, and then Councillor Manley can move an amendment. Is that fair, Ms. Gurry?
Your Worship, now that there is a motion on the floor, if Councillor Manley chose to amend it with a seconder, that could be on the floor. Yeah.
So the motion is the recommended motion. It's been seconded by Councillor Perino. Councillor Manley, you wish to move an amendment? Sorry, hang on. There we go.
I'd like to move that we amend the motion and add a fifth option for the public to consider, and that would be that that the piece of property is left intact without affordable housing on it.
Without affordable housing. Without
any housing on it, yeah.
The seconder for that? Seconded Councillor Gesselbrock. Councillor Armstrong, Perino, and Gesselbrock in order.
Thank you. I can't support that amendment without knowing how much it will cost us and where the money is going to come from, because it is in the report that we would have to change our funding model, and I don't know if we even have the money to be able to change that. So for that reason, I can't support that at this time. Thank you.
Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to staff. The way the recommendation reads that we put on before the amendment is, could we not put the suggestion by Councillor Manley on part of the options that we would present to the public, so it wouldn't be, in other words, it wouldn't be part of the motion, but one of the options that we would showcase to the public? No, my understanding is that, but why would you, so let me phrase this differently. Why would we put this as part of as part of the motion when we have none of the other options listed as part of the recommendation. I understand that, but what I'm wondering is we don't have all of them listed, or am I wrong?
Your worship, just to clarify, the concept plan that will be going to the public for consultation currently included 4 options, and Councillor Manley's amendment adds a 5th option.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gesselbrock and then Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Worship. I support putting the 5th option. We should have all options on the table when going out to the public. And you know what? I'm pretty sure I know where the public feedback is going to go on this, so it's still coming back to council. I will not be supporting any option with a larger footprint than 1 acre, but let's hear from the community again.
3 to 5. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am not opposed to having affordable housing on this property. I just think it's a good idea to leave all the options open to the public to be able to look at them and to provide feedback. And ultimately, this will come back to council as a council decision, and we'll decide what is best for this property at that time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any further discussion, so the motion is essentially 5 options. All those in favor? Sorry, can you keep your hands up, please, for a minute? Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Hemmens, Mayor Krogh, Thorpe, Perino, and Manley, and those opposed. Councillor Armstrong, motion is carried. Thank you very much, staff, for this one. I do appreciate it.
Your worship, sorry to be a pain, but you need to vote on the main motion as amended now.
Motion as amended, yes. All right. All those in favor of the motion as amended, sorry, yes, they're quite right, I'm pushing through. The same councillors, with those opposed. Councillor Armstrong opposed. We're on the main motion. All those in favor of the motion as amended. Sorry, yes, sorry, okay. I thought we had to go back and do that. All right. All I know is we're going to get a report with 5 options, right? That's what counts. The next is development permit application DP 1304-4157, and I'm not sure whether it's Vert or Verte, or Vert Place. And we have Mr. Dewick. Good evening.
Good
Mr.
evening.
Dewick, welcome. You're well, actually, we should let Mr. Lindsay introduce this first, or Mr. Holm is going to introduce it.
Your Worship, yes, thank you. Sure, thank you. I'll try and keep this brief. A delegate is here to speak to the application. This is a development permit application to consider variances with regard to height for retaining walls, and that's in relation to an existing multifamily development, 27 units under construction, currently almost completing construction at Verte Place off Jingle Pot Road. Happy to take any questions, but the delegate is here to speak to council as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Dewick, good evening.
Good evening. I don't have a presentation. I'm just here to answer any questions if there are any about
All right.
this variance.
Thank you very much. Does council have any questions for the delegation? All right. Would someone care to make the recommended motion? Moved Councillor Hemmens, seconded Councillor Thorpe. Any discussion? Councillor Armstrong? No, sorry, left over. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Thank you.
A lot easier than finding the problem, wasn't it? Thank you. Next is J, development permit application number DP 1302-400 Newcastle Avenue. Mr. Holm, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is an application from the Nanaimo Yacht Club, and it's to replace an existing boat shed with 20 moorage slips with a new boat shed. The existing boat shed, I think, is beyond 50 years of age and in need of replacement. The proposal includes a couple of variances with regard to side yard setback, and the proposal is compliant with applicable development permit area guidelines. I'm happy to take questions. Thanks.
Very good. Any questions for Mr. Holm? Not seeing any. This is what you like about a council that reads its material. Move the recommendation. Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is rezoning application number RA 481-1224 Manzanita Place. Mr. Holm, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. A rezoning application in the Rock City neighborhood, effectively rezoning from R6, sort of a townhouse format zone, to R8, which is more of an apartment style zone, and it's to allow for more of a clustered compact building form on the site. If you could bring up attachment C, the conceptual site plan, that would be helpful. The conceptual site plan shows 16 units in a more compact form on a portion of the site that is already disturbed. The remainder of the site is quite steep and has some environmentally sensitive features and quite steeply sloping area. So this doesn't result in any additional density per se on the site. It's just taking a different form, more compact and clustered building form. So this shows 16 units with underground parking. And if you could bring up attachment D, it'll show you the conceptual building elevations, which fits quite nicely within existing development in the area that's currently under construction. There are a number of conditions recommended to be secured as a condition of rezoning, including community amenity contributions, step code commitment in compliance with council step code rezoning policy, a limit on the fire flow provisions for the design fire flow provisions for the site, construction of a sanitary sewer through the site, and no gating covenant. Happy to take any questions, and I do believe there's a delegation here to speak as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holm. Councillor Armstrong?
Yes, was there a traffic study undertaken for that area?
With the scale of the development, there was not.
Thank you.
Mr. Seward, do you wish to speak to it? Good evening. I think you know the drill.
Good evening, Mayor Krogh and councillors. I'm Toby Seward, 1820 Argyle Avenue. I'm here representing Hazelwood Group, Hazelwood Construction. I'm here with their...
Clear conflict. I didn't realize it was Hazelwood. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, we'll give Councillor Armstrong a minute.
Personal family friend.
So I'm here with two of the senior staff, Chris Nudd and Hazen Fowler, and I will be very brief in my presentation. As I think most of council knows, this is a project that's been underway for just over 15 years. Started with 12 townhouses, 14 houses, 4 townhouses, and now they're proposing to build condominiums, first one on this site. And it, again, as staff had mentioned, very small amount of density, 16 units in 4 stories with 2 underground levels of parking. And I think also a number of councillors are aware that it's a very steep site that's sloping 3 stories down, so the actual visual component is quite small. The site has, over half the site is protected by covenant because of the trees and environmental protection along Ocean Pearl, and so we only have half the site basically built on. So the proposal that the architects came up with is, as you see before you. We had a neighborhood information meeting, 14 area residents attended. It was quite very good to have the feedback, and they raised a couple concerns which we worked on in the design. So we certainly appreciate working with city staff on this application, and look forward to council considering first and second reading of this bylaw. So thanks for the opportunity to present, and I'll answer any questions if the council has any.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any questions on this one. Appreciate the presentation. Councillor Gesselbrock?
Let's move the recommendation.
You have to actually read it. It's
Oh, it's a rezoning. My apologies. Yeah. Zoning amendment. I'd like to move zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500210 to rezone 1224 Manzanita Place from low density residential R6 to medium density residential R8 with site specific density. Pass first reading.
seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Move zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500210 pass second reading.
Seconded Councillor Perino. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Gesselbrock.
I'd like to move that council direct staff to secure the conditions related to zoning amendment bylaw 2023, number 4500.210, as outlined in the conditions of rezoning section of the staff report dated 2023, June 19. Should council support the bylaw at third reading?
Seconded, Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you for your attendance, gentlemen. The next is L, rezoning application number RA 489-355 Nicholl Street. Mr. Holm, again.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Lindsay's passing the ball to you constantly, isn't he?
Yeah, he gets enough time in the spotlight, I think, but it's generous of him. So this is a rezoning application from Muchlet Projects, and this is actually on behalf of BC Housing. This is one of the sites that's included in the MOU, supportive housing agreement that Council entered into with BC Housing. So an important project for the city, and looking at contributing an additional 35 supportive housing units on the site in a 6-story building form. The site is on Nicholl Street near Farquhar, so south end of the community. And what's proposed is site-specific amendments to the CS1, the Community Service 1 zone, and site-specific amendments would be for additional density, so from 1.25 FAR to 2.23 FAR, and additional height from 14 meters to 19.2 meters to accommodate a 6-story building form on the site. Also included and to be considered on a report subsequently is additional open space relative to the project on a portion of city undeveloped lane in the area to provide additional amenity area for the proposed housing site. That's in a subsequent report that I believe Mr. Corson will be presenting on tonight's agenda. This report just speaks to the land use proposal, which is compliant with official community plan policies, city plan policies for the property. There's a response from the South End Community Association included as attachment F to the report, as well as a comprehensive BC Housing engagement summary included as attachment G to the report. A number of conditions are proposed to be secured, including community amenity contribution, commitment to step codes, council step code rezoning policy, and some off-site improvements on the lane to support improved access to the site. Again, it's an important supportive housing development proposed here, 35 units as conceptually designed. Important also to note that should this flow through with council support through public hearing and then on to third reading and adoption of the bylaw, there would be a subsequent step. The next step in development consideration would be development permit, at which time, if there are any variances proposed, which we anticipate a couple, they would be considered through the development permit process. So important step in the development proposal, but there are additional steps to follow for council's consideration. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gesselbrock.
I would like to move that zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500.209 to rezone 355 Nicholl Street with site-specific density and height provisions within the Community Services 1 CS1 zone pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Move zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500.209 pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Move council direct staff to secure the conditions related to zoning amendment bylaw 2023 number 4500.209 as outlined in the conditions of rezoning section of the staff report dated 2023 June 19. Should council support the bylaw at third reading?
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. We're on to item M, proposed road closure and approval in principle to lease unnamed laneway between 334 and 364 Halliburton Street. Mr. Corson, good evening.
Thanks, Your Worship. So this is, as Mr. Hull mentioned, a follow-up to the previous rezoning application. as part of this housing project, BC Housing is seeking to lease a bit of the laneway which connects from Halliburton Street to this property on Nickel Street. This property was used as a community garden by the South End Neighborhood Association. They're not using it anymore. And as part of the supportive housing project, the idea is this area will be included and maintained by the operator, and will look after the maintenance of the property. So we have written probably one of the longest recommendations of the night, and there's a few aspects to this. Because this is a laneway, we need to actually raise title to it so that we could then lease it to BC Housing. So the first part of the recommendation is we have to go through start a road closure process, and then in a subsequent meeting, should the road closure process be adopted, we'll then come back to you with a lease agreement, and we'll be seeking your direction to lease this closed roadway to BC Housing for 60 years. It'll be tied back to the project on Nickel Street. Happy to answer any specific questions you may have, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Corson. I'm not seeing any. Councillor Gesselbrock, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this roadway is actually the first food forest in Nanaimo. It's the South End Community Forum Food Forest with signage. And it was planted as a perennial food forest with, I think there's a couple fig trees in there, a plum tree, 2 apple trees, a medlar tree, elderberry tree. I walked through there recently and picked freshly ripened gummy berries. And it's been a community asset for maybe around 10 years now. I think that BC Housing has reached out to the community and they've walked through, and I do believe they do want to use it as green space because the development they proposed doesn't really have much area to utilize. The food forest, however, is utilized by the community and people walk through there quite often. It went through a bit of a rough patch about 4 years ago when there was a lot of camping in the site, but that's cleared up. And yeah, people do go and keep the weeds at bay. And the city was mowing the lawn there, which made it quite nice. And I think since the BC Housing request, there's been interest looking at it. I think it would be nice to maintain some access of the community to it, and I know there's some provision in the lease agreement that would allow it. And so my question is that when this comes back to council, the conditions, are we able to negotiate something? Could we keep, even just the bottom fifth of the space access to the community that walk by Halliburton? There was a park bench in that spot that was heavily utilized earlier on and was removed because of the homelessness situation, which has, in the last year and a half, 2 years, has cleared up. But I'm curious what type of leeway in the lease agreement for public access exists.
Yeah, so through Your Worship, Councillor Gesselbrock, this is your property, so it's up to you as to how you wish it to be, what the conditions are with BC Housing. And certainly we can have that conversation with them about access. We do know the idea is it would be open to the public. I think the idea was at nighttime they were thinking of limiting access to it. But the goal at the moment is that it's a public space during the day, and then just from a public safety perspective, it might be closed off in the evening. So if there's a portion of the property you feel that would be best suited to be open all the time to the public, then we could consider that in the lease agreement.
Just to follow up, I'm not opposed to it being closed off at nighttime. I think there could be some benefits from it. I'm just curious, at what stage would sort of the detailed negotiations go on in terms of what would be accessible and at what time, and would the finalized lease agreement, once all those sort of discussions occur, is that what comes back to council, or when is there sort of input into the details?
Yeah, so through Your Worship, first first step is to go through the road closure process, which will take a couple council meetings, actually 3 council meetings. And then we'll work on the lease agreement with BC Housing. I'll come to you with a draft for your consideration. You can give us some feedback, and then we take it back for one more final. So you're going to see this agreement multiple times.
Beauty. Thank you.
Someone care to make the recommended motion then? Move Councillor Ms. Gurry.
Thank you, Worship. Sorry about that. I'm not sure if Councillor Gesselbrock wants to look at his annotated version of the agenda and move 1 through 5 together, and then do the highway closure removal first and second reading after you've moved 1 through 5. So on your screen here, it would be moving 1, 4, 5, 6, and 7 together, and then you could then separately give the first and second readings. Just might be.
So,
sorry.
I'm sorry. If you're looking on your screen, you don't have to read them all out separately. You could make a motion to move in the recommendations number 1, 4, 5, 6, and 7 together, and then do the other ones separately, or you can just read them all separately, but you do need to actually read the bylaws here.
great. I've got the annotated version here, so I will
I have
move.
the annotated version too, and it says 1 through 5.
Yeah. I'll move items 1 through 5, the recommendations 1 through 5.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? Councillor Perino?
Sorry, Your Worship. I was just listening to Ms. Gurry. You said 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 2, 3 separately. So I'm just wanting to make sure we're doing this correctly.
So no, Your Worship, if you're looking at your annotated, it is 1 through 5, as Councillor Gesselbrock said. I was just trying to outline the difference in the actual staff report that's on your screen.
Okay.
That.
I think, Ms. Gurry, you're
I'm complicating what I should.
You're muddying the waters.
Ms. Gurry?
Not that I ever offer any
I'll just shut
criticism
up.
of you, but
I just wanted to make sure we were doing this correctly.
Ms. Gurry was trying to
1
help.
through 5.
Ms. Gurry was trying to help me out because I did not have my annotated version, so I'm greatly appreciative of that. I've got a copy now, and I will move now that.
1 through 5?
Oh,
1 through 5?
We got to vote on it.
But yeah.
It's been moved and seconded.
Got it. Thank you.
All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Now, Councillor Gesselbrock, you can move the motion for first reading.
I'd like to move that highway closure and dedication removal bylaw 2023, number 7364, a bylaw to provide highway closure and dedication removal of an unnamed laneway between 334 and 364 Halliburton Street, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Move that highway closure and dedication removal bylaw 2023, number 7364, pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Motion carries. We're now on to 507 Milton Street, amendment of project under the Revitalization Tax Exemption Bylaw 2018, number 7261. Mr. Corson, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. Council should be very familiar with this file. We've seen it a few times. This is the project on the corner of Milton and Albert Street. The developer has been working away on this project. He has some challenges with the pandemic and supply chain and labor. Just before Christmas, Council extended the deadline to June 30th of this year. In recent conversations with the developer, he requires another 6 months. He should be done soon. So we've chosen December 30th of the end of this year as the amended date. I believe he will be completed by that point.
Well, Mr. Corson, I have to say I drive by that project. I think it's a very attractive addition to the neighborhood. And I sincerely hope the developer doesn't go into bankruptcy given how long it's taken to get it to this stage. But having said that, would someone, if there are any questions, Councillor Perino?
Thank you, Your Worship. My question was simply, how many times do you normally allow this, being one of the newbies at the council table?
Yeah, through Your Worship to Councillor Perino, it's occasionally we'll give one extension.
So we're on how many extensions now?
I think we're on 3 or 4. But
In for a penny, in for a pound, Councillor Perino.
Yes, thank you.
I must admit, and I'm being somewhat jocular here, but the whole concept of development is to get your permits, get it built, get it sold, and we desperately need the housing in Nanaimo, and
Great area.
this project needs to get finished, and I understand they've had numerous problems through COVID and labor and every supplies, and so be it. We haven't made the motion yet.
I'll put the motion on the floor, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Armstrong. Any discussion? Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question to staff about this tax exemption process. So it's been going for a few years. Is there a time limit on this tax exemption for building downtown? I understand it was really needed at one point to incentivize people to build in the downtown core, and now I'm just curious about how long we're going to carry on with it, if there was a window for it or not.
yeah, so through Your Worship, Councillor Manley, the project's about 4 or 5 years into it now, and we're actually doing a review of it. So Ms. Manhouse is doing a review of this program as well as our hotel tax exemption program, and our plans to come to a GPC probably this fall, just to kind of go over the findings with you and see how council feels about the program, and if you want to amend it or come up with a different program. So we're going to have a very good fulsome discussion at GPC on the effectiveness of these programs.
And the potential tax implications. It's a 10-year program, I understand?
Yeah, so under the legislation, you can provide up to 10 years, and our programs take advantage of the full 10 years. Some communities provide less time, and some programs themselves do have a limited period. So you might set up a tax exemption program that only runs for 5 years to help encourage people to get into it. Right now, our program is open time-wise. So,
and is it open to anything like stratas, condos, or is it just for affordable or for rental stock?
So the downtown tax exemption is for any multifamily or commercial project over $500,000 in value.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you, Worship. Just with these next two, I'm not going to support the tax exemption. I think that the benefits, the downside of the loss of taxation kind of outweigh the benefits of currently having it, and I think it's very timely that we're reviewing this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The motion's on the floor. All those in favor? Councillors Armstrong, Hemmons, Mayor Krog, Thorpe, Perino, and those opposed. Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, and Manley. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Ms. Gurry, we're past 9. It's been a while since we got past 9. Do I have to do something at this point, I think, or can I just jam through?
No, you can just carry on. It's 11 that we would have to get a motion to carry on.
Oh, good.
But we just have the one more report, and then we're going to be done, I think.
Well done. 70, no breaks, Councillor Manley. We're ruthless. 77 Chapel Street, acceptance of project under revitalization tax exemption bylaw 2018, number 7261. Mr. Corson, please.
So there's 154 units in this project. I'm going to take you through each one. So, unit by unit.
Sure you're not an engineer?
Exactly. Sorry, Your Worship. So again, very similar to the previous one, we're looking for council's acceptance of this project. This is a new project. This is the project on Chapel Street. This is the second iteration of it. So the previous one was more of a high-rise format. This is 3 buildings with 154 units total. The development permit has been issued, and they're currently starting to work on their building permit. In order for financing, they like to have the project included in the tax exemption program so they can secure the funding to complete their building permit and then move forward with the project. Under this, we've given them some longer dates to avoid the issue of having to keep giving extensions. So they're required to have a building permit by March 31st of 2025 and then be open by March 31st of 2028. Obviously, it can be sooner, but those are the dates they'd have to be hit by.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gesselbrock?
Thanks. You know, I think this project is a huge win for Nanaimo, and yeah, a lot of gratitude for the developers and moving forward with this. Unfortunately, I can't support the tax exemption for the reasons of just the loss of taxation, the negative impacts of that outweighs the benefits of the program. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Can we get the motion on the floor? Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Hemmons. Any further discussion? Councillor Perino?
Sorry, Your Worship, I don't mean to take extra time, but so every time we have a situation like this, it comes to the council table to be voted on. That's correct? Okay, and that's good. I'm pleased to see that. And this is to encourage more development in the downtown core. Is 10 years a common? Is that a common practice in other cities? Is this? I'm hearing what Councillor Gesselbrock has to say, and I certainly agree. It's a long time, and I'm glad to hear that we're going to be reviewing it. But I'm just wondering, from your experience, is this something that you would see on a regular basis in other cities comparable?
Yes. So through Your Worship, Councillor Perino, Ms. Manhouse and I were reviewing she did a bit of a best practice review of other municipalities, and the vast majority that have programs like this do the full 10 years.
They do. They do the full 10.
Sometimes they do phasing. They'll phase it, but the majority do the full 10 years.
Okay. Yeah. And then my next question is, when do we expect construction to start? What are we looking at? Any idea?
So under the timelines, they have to pick up their building permit by March of 2025.
Okay.
So they would be starting construction in 25, okay, and then have a couple years to complete the project.
And why wouldn't they start construction sooner than that?
So they certainly could under this. They certainly could.
That's just the maximum time. Is that
We're
right?
just trying to avoid this issue. We have to go back and amend dates,
okay,
like we just did on the previous ones.
So we may very well see construction start sooner than that.
Yeah. So they still need to submit their building permit and then pick up the building permit, which is obviously the critical piece, and then get started. So if they submit their building permit next, by the fall, then hopefully next spring they'd be off and running.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Corson. That's great.
Thank you. I appreciate Councillor Gesselbrock's concern around granting tax exemptions to these kind of developments. And, if we were guaranteed a fulsome, robust economy, 24/7, 365 a year for decades, I might well agree with him. But there are some signs out there, and some of us older folks have seen this happen before. Major developments not proceeding, particularly in the city of Vancouver, condominium units in major centers not being sold, getting financing together. The banks tighten up very quickly. I'll tell you a quick story. My grandparents on the prairies in 28 wanted to borrow money. They had good credit. They had a farm. They wanted to buy more cattle, and the banker said no, because the banker understood how the economy worked, and the Great Depression started a year later. They sold the farm mercifully before it collapsed. Now, I tell that timely story just to suggest that this is not going to continue forever. And whatever concerns we may have around a tax exemption now, if it makes the difference between this project proceeding and not proceeding in a community with a less than 1% vacancy rate, and it results in quote-unquote overbuilding for the market that drives down house prices, then it's well worth the investment by reducing the property taxation in accordance with a program that this council, the City Council of Nanaimo, brought in for, I think, good public reason. Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Your Worship. Now I'm on. Thank you, Your Worship. I see the value in incentivizing building in our downtown, and I would actually like I'm looking forward to revisiting this bylaw, because I'd like to see a phased approach. With this particular property, we're looking at $1.7 million of taxation over 10 years, which is a fair chunk of money. And so I'm kind of mixed. I voted against the last one, and I'm kind of mixed about this one, because I do want to see these projects going forward. and I do want to see our downtown revitalized, but I think this is it's a pretty sweet, very sweet deal for developers. And years down the road, other councils may be looking at this and going, that was quite the giveaway, because we do have a beautiful location here, and we are a desired location for people to move to, and people are coming here whether we develop or not. This community is growing, there's demand for housing here, and developers are building housing based on that demand. So, yeah, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. In order, Councillors Thorpe and Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. Since I've been involved on council, we have been struggling to encourage development downtown and more housing downtown and residential development. And a council decided to use this as an incentive. I personally support the concept very strongly. If we wish to review it at some future date, as staff is suggesting, that's fine. We can have that debate. But right now, the agreement is in place, and this project, like others, qualifies for it. So I don't know why we're spending a lot of time debating philosophy when that's better applied to a future meeting if we want to review this entire program. Right now, we have a policy in place, a project that qualifies under our own guidelines, so I say let's vote on it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can't help myself. The one thing that I heard during the election very clearly was do as much as you can to support development in the downtown core so we bring more people and build an environment of family and just joyful connection with our business community as well as our, the residential community. And we have had trouble getting buildings of this type in our downtown core. And I'll tell you, as much as I want to review this, and we can do that in the future, they have gotten their application in time. They have every right to ask for the 10-year. It's a long time, but as far as I'm concerned, if we can get this development up and going, get residents living in there, all the better. I will absolutely be supporting this, and I hope all of council does.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, Councillors Armstrong, Eastmere, Hemmens, Mayor Krogh, Councillors Thorpe, Perino, and Manley, and those opposed, Councillor Gesselbrock. Motion carries. Thank you very much. We have no bylaws, no notices of motion. I trust and hope no other business. Question period, no sign-up sheet. Ms. Gurry, well done. Motion for adjournment. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Conscious of the fact that staff started earlier today, we